Good morning, everybody, and welcome into Hogs Hoops Live. I am your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me over at HawgSports.com alongside Trey Biddy, Danny West, and Andrew Ellis. Tough loss for the Razorbacks at LSU Wednesday night. We're going to break it all down, take a look at what lies ahead for the Hogs, get to your questions and comments as always. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, folks, you know all the places you can watch and listen to this point. Be sure to throw us a like, thumbs up, 5-star review. Those things really do help us a ton to expand our reach, and we definitely do appreciate it. Don't forget about our promo. There's still a few more days to get in on this deal. HawgSports is 50% off for an annual VIP membership. Paramount Plus is free with your subscription. It's a good deal. Hop over to HawgSports.com and take advantage of that now. All right. A little bit of a shorter show today. I do have a drive to St. Louis to make this afternoon. I'm going to go visit some family, friends, the old stomping grounds. Been looking forward to that. But we got to talk about this LSU game. I have mixed emotions about it. You know? Mixed emotions. The SEC is tough, man. These league games are different. Higher intensity. They're grinders, usually. More physical, they're officiated differently, and nothing is easy on the road. Yeah, I fully expected Arkansas to be challenged in this one. Thought they were going to win. But, you know, the first experience in SEC play for most of this roster, if you're not Devo Davis or Kamani Johnson, right? You know, Arkansas's down a couple bodies. It's the first true road game of the season. So, you know, I mean, there's some elements there. I'm not going to lie, though. You know, Arkansas loses this one 60-57 in Baton Rouge, and I really feel like they let one get away that they should have had. You know, to me, Arkansas, with or without Nick Smith Jr., they're better than LSU. They're more talented. They're more battle-tested at this stage of the season. I feel like that's one you should get. Road wins are precious in this league, and that was a good opportunity for Arkansas to get one. So, you know, what stood out in this game? You know, where did things go wrong? You know, honestly, the Hogs just didn't play very well. And poor performances will, you know, they'll get you beat on the road in this league. I think you have to start on the offensive end of the floor. It was really a struggle, especially in the first half. I think it's pretty telling when Eric Musselman uses the phrase out of character several times during his post game, and it was kind of an uncharacteristic performance for Arkansas on the offensive end of the floor, and they haven't been a juggernaut on that you know, that end by any means, but they just kind of got away from their identity, don't you think? I feel like they did, at least. You know, LSU is a pretty good team. They're certainly flawed. I think we can agree with that. You know, they've struggled quite a bit, though, with containing dribble penetration against lesser opponents this year. Arkansas had a distinct advantage, you know, when it comes to height and length in the backcourt. But again, they just got away from their identity on the offensive end. You know, 19 points in the first half on 27% shooting. That's season lows for half, I'm almost certain, in both categories there. 0 of 13 from 3 in the first half. I mean, there are nights where Arkansas doesn't shoot 13 threes in a full game. And they shot 13 in the first half at LSU. And you know, they were in that little matchup zone that was effective for them. It wasn't anything special or anything that Arkansas hasn't seen before. They just settled for jumpers, and they just weren't aggressive in their attack, especially early on. Weren't able to get downhill and get into the teeth of the defense. Only 3 free throws attempted in the first half. That's what happens when you're shooting a bunch of jumpers, right? So it was a struggle on the offensive end there early on. I thought the Hogs defended really well in the first half, you know, and that kept them in it, right? So they were fortunate to only be down 5 at the break. What was it, 24-19? You know, after the break, I'm sure at halftime during the speech, you know, from Muss, it was a whole lot of, you guys got to get more aggressive. You got to be relentless attacking the rim, because I thought that's what we saw coming out of the break. They looked a lot more assertive on the attack, and some of those threes finally started to fall. That helped too. They had a nice little run there. They kind of got LSU to back out of that zone for a while, but, they kind of dug their hole there, and then just, they just couldn't get them to fall. It was one of those nights, at the end of the game, season low 57 points, a season high 25 3-point attempts that you only make 4 of, season low in free throw rate by a significant margin. They only got to the line 10 times in the game. And it just felt like nobody in the starting lineup was really feeling it consistently. Some guys had some outbursts and some spurts there. But, did anybody bring their A game to this one? I don't think so. And Arkansas is a talented enough team to win some games when that's the case. But, a lot more things have to go right, I think, than they did in this one. Struggled in the half court, especially offensively. And just, I think some of it, too, was they weren't generating enough turnovers to fuel that transition offense. That's when they're at their best, right? Turning teams over, getting out on the break, and converting. Didn't have as much of that. The defense was good. I thought they defended pretty well in the half court. A couple of exceptions that we'll talk about. The ball security was good. Arkansas only turned it over 10 times. That's a great number on the road in SEC play. But they only turned LSU over 10 times as well, and they only turned those into 4 points on the other end. Arkansas, a team that plays at one of the highest tempos in the country, only had 7 points on fast breaks. So, the Hogs had outscored their last 2 opponents coming into this game 69-14 in points off turnovers. It's just such a big part of what they do and what makes them a special team. And so not having that at the rate that you're used to, it exposed some of the flaws in the half-court offense. But yeah, despite not turning LSU over a ton, I thought Arkansas did some really good things defensively for sure. They only allowed 60 points in the game. That's a winning number. LSU was 4 of 17 from 3. That's a winning number. So what I'm getting at here is this is a frustrating loss, but there were a lot of things that Arkansas still did well, despite, just playing poorly compared to what we're used to seeing. Just looking at some of the box score stuff here, you hold the SEC's leading scorer in KJ Williams. This guy's a double-double machine. He's had some huge games. You hold him to 8 points and 5 boards. You eliminate Justice Hill's ability to facilitate. He came in leading the SEC in assist-to-turnover rate. I think he had 50 assists and just 16 turnovers on the year. You took that part of his game away. Adam Miller, the best scorer in the backcourt for LSU, you took him out of the equation, clamped him. So that was all great, right? The 3 most prominent weapons you kind of neutralized there. But then Trey Hannibal comes off the bench like a bowling ball, the South Carolina transfer, and he just gets to the rim whenever he wants, no matter who Arkansas put on him. And that was frustrating because Arkansas had that length advantage in the backcourt, but Hannibal, I call him a bowling ball because he's only about 6'2", but he's built like a linebacker, big, strong, physical dude, and he would just duck his head, drive right into the chest of Arkansas defenders, and he'd power up and finish on them. And they didn't really have a good answer for that. He almost single-handedly won him that game with his 19 points. Had some big buckets in isolation down the stretch. Derek Fountain, this is a guy he was a bit player at Mississippi State, a role player. He had a double-double in this one. He's kind of come into his own with the change of scenery there at LSU. So, you take some of the better guys out of the equation, but then you have a couple role players who get off on you. So, a little bit of good and bad there on the defensive end of the floor. But really, despite all that, Arkansas had every opportunity to win this game down the stretch. Ricky Council, he really struggled in this one. He missed some pretty critical free throws. He split a pair at the line at one point down the stretch. He missed the front end of a 1-and-1 a little bit later. It's a guy who shoots over 80% from the line. Just things he would typically convert with. But then, less than a minute to play, you're down 1, you need a stop, and then you have plenty of time for a possession. Arkansas switches Devo onto Hannibal. Devo is your lockdown defender, but, Hannibal just overpowered him in that moment and got the bucket there. Arkansas still answered. I think it was Anthony Black who had the putback there to cut it to 1. There's 21 seconds left to play. So Arkansas sets up the defense. They don't foul right away. They go for the trap, try to get a steal because you have a little bit of time there. LSU broke it, right? They broke the press and hadn't attempted the rim, but Mekhi Mitchell comes up with an incredible block. You regain possession there with about 8 or 9 seconds left. And, man, you got a chance to win the game. You get it up the floor to Ricky Council, but he gets caught in traffic there, in the paint, and he turns it over. Didn't even get a shot off. Did he get fouled? Maybe so. I just don't think that's going to get called in that moment with the way the game had played out. A lot of folks felt like maybe he should have called timeout when Arkansas got the ball back there with 8 or 9 seconds left. I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I mean, it's easy, right, to look back after the fact and question it. But I think if Eric Musselman knew, how it would play out, he probably would have done the same thing, too, right? He's kind of questioned that decision, maybe gone with something a little bit different. But you don't know until you see it play out. I mean, to me, it's just my opinion. But, I mean, Arkansas hadn't really executed well at all up to that point against a set defense. This is a team in the Razorbacks that thrives in the open floor after generating turnovers, all right? They create chaos and they capitalize off of it. So you did that, right? By forcing that turnover, you've got LSU scrambling back on defense, and you've got your leading scorer who's one of the best transition finishers in the country with the ball in his hands, getting downhill. So, yeah, I mean, I'd let that play out for sure. Didn't work out in this case, and that stinks, but I don't think that was a bad decision at all. Plus, I mean, what if he calls a timeout and draws something up, what's it going to be? Just given the situation. I mean, do you set up a jump shot for a team that hasn't really been making them all night? I don't know. Does LSU go back to that matchup zone and break the play call? They could. I mean, if we're being honest here, it's probably something to get Ricky Council going downhill anyway. So at least in this situation, he was doing it against a scrambling defense instead of a set one. Again, still didn't work out. Just how the ball bounces sometimes. Heck, LSU had a couple free throws there with 1.8 seconds left. It increased the lead to 3, right? So it's still a one-possession game. Jordan Walsh got a great look. I don't think we talked about that enough from half court straight away from 3 that, almost banked in. That would have been insane if he would have had that. Looked good, but rimmed out. Man, they just looked uneven at times and couldn't get the shots to fall. It's just, how do you sum it up? Well, it was one of those nights, right? I thought Mekhi Mitchell was pretty solid. 8 points, 12 boards. He did his major contributions to me were on the defensive end of the floor. I thought he did a great job on KJ Williams. He limited him. He kept him off the glass. If I'm being honest, though, I feel like Arkansas could have maybe run some offense through Mekhi at times in the second half. He can score it. He had his man in foul trouble, and he's a good passer, too. I need to go back and watch the film and see how many touches he got there in the second half. I don't know. It was late. I haven't gone back and watched it, but 0 shot attempts in the second half. That surprises me. He got fouled one time, and he made both of his free throws. So, I don't know. I feel like they could have just maybe utilized him more. But you had some other guys going a little bit there in the second half, but just my thoughts there. Devo led the way with 16 points. It's just one of those Devo games, man. Like, I do those player grades all the time, and I don't know how many times I've written, like, I just don't know how to grade Devo's performance because, boy, he impacts winning in so many ways, but then he just makes you want to rip your hair out sometimes. And we had a little bit of that up and down. I do think his offense was much needed, especially in the second half. He had a couple threes. Arkansas really needed those timely threes. I think both of them tied the game. So big shots that he made there, but he shot 8 of them. It just seems like a high number when you're shooting 18% on the year. And we know the emphasis is on, improved shot selection. Had a couple good looks late that didn't fall, whatever. His shot selection is always going to be there, but his energy is contagious. He did some really good things defensively. He struggled with Hannibal too. Man, that guy was just a bowling ball. He really was. I mean, I'm not sure how much skill was involved, but he's just stronger than everybody else. He'd duck his head and drive through him. Anthony Black had a hard time with him. And Devo, he had that isolation possession there in the final minute, and he lost that one-on-one battle, but dude's tough. I give him credit. Mentioned Anthony Black, and he looked a little bit out of sorts. He really struggled defensively, when he was matched up with anyone besides Justice Hill, and he really used his length well to disrupt that. He was a big part of what Arkansas was doing there. But it turns out he was under the weather. Missed 2 days of practice coming back from Christmas. He only got one practice in before the game, and then he goes out there and plays 40 minutes. So you wonder how fatigue might have played into things down the stretch. I think Arkansas needs him, while Nick is out, to be more aggressive, looking to score. If Arkansas is going to have 3 guys who take 14 or more shots in a game, I think Anthony Black needs to be one of them, personally. But he only had 8 attempts in this game. I think he was 3 of 8 from the field. Jordan Walsh, man, he had so many good looks from 3 in the first half that just didn't fall. I think he had 4 of them in the first several minutes, and every one of them that came off his hand, I'm like, boom, make money. Nope. It's one of those nights. I'd love seeing Jordan Walsh shoot 8 threes. Let that thing fly, man. Arkansas clearly needs it. It's got to make more than one, though, right? But listen, I thought Walsh did some great things in the second half. He was strong defensively, active, and he attacked the boards. That's what I've been waiting to see from Walsh. I bring it up all the time. I just think he can help this team so much more with his athleticism. Rebounding is one of the areas I'm talking about. What was he averaging, like 3 a game coming in? He had 9 against LSU. He was all over the glass, both ends. I love that. That was an aggressive effort. I thought he did some good things. He really got going there for a while in the second half, and he had one just elevator, rise up finish over the top of a defender where it was like, there's that first round pick athleticism that he has. So he's getting more and more comfortable. And it's all about consistency with these young guys, right? From game to game or from half to half. But he grew up last night. There are lessons to be learned in a loss. Council mentioned him struggle a little bit. I felt bad for him. 5 of 19 from the field. That's not good. He had so many chances there to be the hero. Talked about some of those missed free throws that he makes, the opportunity at the end. He wasn't able to get a shot off. I feel like all night he was able to get to his spots. He wasn't able to get to the rim as much, and credit LSU's defense for that. But he was able to get in that sweet spot, 8 to 12 feet, where he can knock down that mid-range, elevate over guys, and man, he just couldn't get the roll. So many of them just rolled out on him. The way it is sometimes. Man. Just unfortunate, some missed opportunities for this team. It feels like, if one guy was really on his A game, in a little bit of takeover mode, that would have been a win. Oh well. Man, Must rode the starters hard. Black, Council, Devo, all those guys played 40 minutes. 36 for Mackay, 32 for Jordan Walsh. It seems like a lot, on a night where guys are struggling a little bit. But it just didn't really feel like the bench had it in this game. And that's a concern for me right now, is consistent production from that second wave. We talk so much about how deep this team is, but they're a little bit depleted right now. I hate to keep bringing up Trevin Brazile because, he's not that he's not worth bringing up. Like, he's been out for a while now. Like Arkansas has made that adjustment, but it's a dude that was playing nearly 30 minutes per game for you, right? And then, with the uncertainty surrounding Nick, but those are your 2 best 3-point shooters, I think. 2 guys that can really score it for you. So, Arkansas obviously is still playing very sound on the defensive end of the floor, but, until Nick gets back, and man, hopefully that happens or happens soon, whatever. I think there are going to be some nights like this where things are a little bit uneven offensively. I think it shows a little bit more, like I mentioned earlier, when they're not generating a bunch of turnovers and getting those easy ones in transition or getting to the free throw line like they typically do, right? That's where they kind of close that gap and make up for, maybe what they don't have in, creation or 3-point shooting, whatever. But the bench, Kamani played 7 minutes. He didn't record a stat, but he's in the game for different reasons, right? Energy, defense, everything like that. But right now, Arkansas needs some scoring punch. So you look to Jalen Graham, right? I mean, he had that great game before Christmas that kind of sucks you back in a little bit to sipping that Kool-Aid. It's breakout time. But, in this one, it was just pretty clear that, as soon as he subbed in, he just didn't have it in this game last night. He picked up a foul 3 seconds into checking in. He just looked a little, I don't know, I don't want to say timid, unsure, maybe. Just completely threw away an entry pass as an errant pass. He spun into a charge. I don't know. His minutes were limited. And I think that's just the latest example of kind of the ups and downs there. I would like to see him have a longer leash too. We know what he's capable of providing. It's all about consistency. And I don't think he has to go in and score 8 points right away, to get an extended look or not get taken out or whatever. But I really don't blame Muss for not going back to him in this game. Just watching him, in the minutes that he had, it just didn't seem like he was locked in on this given night. And in a tight game like that, it's tough to risk it. But, man, they need him. They really do. He's going to have his moments. Take that to the bank. He's going to have his moments this season. Boy, they need him consistently. Joseph Pinion got a short look. It's tough with him right now because I'm not sure that one game sample size against UNC Asheville, where he looked great, but I don't know if that warrants a big expanded role yet. You automatically, after a game like that, you get zoned, you don't shoot well from three, and so what do? You look at the bench and go, shooter, why wasn't he in, right? I mean, that's human nature. But man, there's a lot that goes into those decisions, from practice to sample size and everything like that. So, I don't know if he was ready for SEC road game, true freshman, spotlight there. But man, if Arkansas is struggling like they were last night, maybe it needs to be baptism by fire. I don't know. But I mean, regardless of who it is, I just think Arkansas has to get some bench production. You can't get outscored 25-0 with your second unit. It just can't happen. And you also can't expect all of your starters to play 40 minutes a game and win consistently in the SEC. You're going to wear out. And it stinks that that's where we're at because, for the early portions of the season, we were talking about how Arkansas was able to wear teams down with their depth. And now we're kind of looking at it on the other side, and they have pieces. All these guys we just talked about off the bench can help. They've made impacts, but where's the consistency? And it's just going to have to develop over time here. Has to. So, is there a cause for major concern here? No. Look, Arkansas let one get away, but, put it in perspective. They played or shot about as poorly as they can. They lost a one-possession game on the road against a team that's 12-1. In league play. So, they were right there, far from disaster, right? They played hard, they battled. I'd be really surprised if they don't bounce back pretty quick. And, I really like the mental makeup of this group. I do. They've responded to adversity really well. Muss has a track record of, kind of turning teachable moments into improved play. They're going to be fine. But I do think it shows, that the margin of error is maybe a lot more thin when you're shorthanded. That's for anybody. But especially in the SEC, and there's some holes with this team that got exploited, exposed a little bit last night. And there are holes right now, particularly on the offensive end. But you identify it, you learn from it, you fix it, right? I think it was a one-off. But the most important thing now is to make sure that, this doesn't snowball into one of those downswings that you have to dig out of, like we've seen in the past. Potholes are expected. Along the way, you want to avoid the craters. And so that's the challenge for Arkansas here. One loss, it doesn't mean anything. The Hogs only dropped 4 spots to number 14 in the net, and they're still ahead of LSU. Life is good. Still better than last year, right? The SEC, man, it's a beast, though. That showed on opening night last night. Not just Arkansas. Like Tennessee, they found themselves in a dogfight, man, at Ole Miss. Barely snuck out with a win. It was an ugly game, grinder. That's how it is on some of these nights, especially on the road. Auburn squeaked one out at home against a Florida team that's been struggling. I think Florida was 7-5 coming in. Auburn's ranked. So, Arkansas took their lump on Wednesday, but everybody's going to got here at some point in this league. Book it. It's just going to happen. It's going to be parity. Bama got a nice road win at Mississippi State. Boy, hey, listen, shout out to Missouri. I got to admit, Arkansas's next opponent, the Tigers, they're probably going to come into Bud Walton Arena ranked, right? This ain't Quanzo Martin's Mizzou anymore. 12-1. They got embarrassed by Kansas on their home floor. That's a rivalry game, but they've really responded well. I mean, they blew the doors off of Illinois before Christmas, and they came out and dominated Kentucky last night. Dominated them. Missouri was the better team, period. Now, that might say more about Kentucky's issues than, Missouri, but look, these dudes can play now. Dennis Gates, man, he's kind of reinvigorated that fan base, the program. They're a small team, but they're tough. They'll press the heck out of you. One of the few teams that gets more steals and forces more turnovers in Arkansas. Lead the SEC in scoring by quite a bit, 88.8 points per game. That's a lot. Stroking it from three. Kobe Brown is back. You guys remember him. I'm previewing this a little bit. That's Arkansas's next game. They got a week off to prepare, so they don't play until Wednesday after the new year. Kobe Brown's back. You remember him. He kind of did everything for him last year. He does it this year as well. He's kind of a matchup problem as a small ball center, can stretch the floor a little bit. Arkansas did a really good job of neutralizing him last year. They also had Trey Wade to do it. A lot of transfers, with the new coaching staff. Demoy Hodge, nice player for him, averaging 17 points per game. Nick Honor, Clemson transfer. He's a high major transfer. I can't remember what school. I think it's Clemson. He's been great for him. Tough, kind of reminds me of Hannibal a little bit with that stocky frame. Point guard for him. Does a nice job. JUCO kid and Sean East. It's been good for him. That's a scrappy bunch. They play hard. They're going to test Arkansas. It's not going to be that cakewalk that, walked into Bud Walton Arena last year and the Hogs blew their doors off. It's going to be a challenge. I think both teams are going to be ranked. So, hey, next Wednesday, it's going to be a battle in Fayetteville. Track meet for sure. Both these teams like to play fast. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I have a feeling that Muss is going to have his Hogs ready to play. All right? He's earned that benefit of the doubt. I think we feel good about it. Schedule's a beast, though. And that's where I talk about, potholes are okay, craters are not. You would like to get that one and set the tone at LSU because, you look at these next three games. A red-hot Missouri team coming in. Then you go to Auburn, one of the toughest places to play in the country. They're still ranked. And then you host Bama, who's gone on the road, knocked off number 1 in Houston this year. They've notched some big wins. They just went to Mississippi State and won. So they're, it's a battle-tested group. They're talented. Those are the next three games. Can you get out at 3-0, 2-1? You certainly don't want it to go the other direction, but look, we're about to learn a whole bunch about what this group is made of, so buckle up, baby. It's going to be fun. All right. Let's jump over to the comments and see what we have. These things have been irritating me a little bit lately because sometimes they roll off. It starts me in the middle. It gets a little bit frustrating. So if I skip over a question, I apologize. I really do. I'm not trying to do that. It's just this Facebook thing is weird. I know it used to be that way with Trey. I don't know if he still has that problem or not. Okay, let's see what we got here. Cedric White says, should Pinion's three-point making ability override his defensive skill set, in your humble opinion? Maybe. It's interesting, though. Like, I think when Arkansas's DNA has been low volume, decent percentage three-point shooting, and just a healthy diet of attacking the rim. They lead, the SEC in dunks. They dominate points in the paint. They get to the free throw line. So they kind of counteract what they're lacking in three-point shooting by, making up for it in other areas. So I think it stood out last night because they just shot way more threes than they typically do. It was a season high. 25 threes and they weren't making them. They weren't doing the other things that make them good on the offensive floor, end of the floor. So I think it stood out a little bit more. Here's the thing with Joe. I don't think his defense has been that bad on ball. That's what I was worried about. Like, does his lateral quickness play? Is he strong enough? And I mean, any freshman has some work to do there, but I think he's been okay from that standpoint. I think it's more, off-ball awareness, rotations, and things of that nature. I know he got in trouble a little bit, I think, for a lapse there when he came out. But I think it depends on how we see this thing evolve. Like, how are teams going to defend Arkansas? Because if they're getting away with packing the lane like that or going to the zone, and look, if Arkansas is going to be chucking up a bunch of threes, you want the guys who can make them to be doing that. And Pinion, small sample size, but you assume he's a guy who can do that, or at least, command enough attention from an opponent to drag somebody out on the perimeter with him and open up a driving lane. So, look, I think you're going to rely on your starters heavily while Nick is out. But I also think, like I said earlier, when you don't have Nick and you don't have Trevin, those are your two, kind of volume, high percentage three-point shooting guys. You have to make some at some point. And so can he help with that? Absolutely. Should it outweigh his defensive stuff? I don't know. I wish I had more views of practice to see how he's shooting there, how he's performing, how he's getting open and getting to his spots. What is he doing when people run him off of the three-point line? Because that's what teams are going to do. Is he comfortable putting it on the floor? Can he finish around the rim? How's his passing? It was good against UNC Asheville, but the SEC is not UNC Asheville. So, like I said, maybe it's baptism by fire a little bit. Maybe it is. But I think that's going to depend on how the other guys are playing. Maybe we wouldn't be talking about it so much if the starters brought it more consistently last night. But like I said, man, you can't go goose egg on the bench. And on a night where you're not shooting well, you automatically look down there and say, well, who can come in and shoot it? And he's that guy. So I kind of feel the same way about JP, like I did Jackson Robinson last year, where I get it. I know that this rotation, that's a tough nut to crack, even though it's thin right now. Man, if you could just find a way to get him in there for a few minutes at a time, just to make an impact, because 1-3, makes a lot of difference, doesn't it? It might have been the difference in a win and a loss last night. Tim Eskew says, I've rarely seen basketball players play as obviously hard as Jordan Walsh did last night. From sprinting the floor, creating jump balls, attacking the glass. His effort stuck out amongst the other guys who were also playing hard. Disappointing loss. Yeah, man, he did. He really got after it. He was so active. And he's so long. And, I think some guys who are just so gifted physically, like Jordan Walsh is, a lot of times they don't match it with the motor, but he really has, man. You're right. He gets after it. He's diving on the floor. He's getting hit in the face. He's mixing it up. He had that tie up with, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Fountain. Maybe it was Cam Hayes. I don't know. But, a lot of tie ups on those rebounds. He's attacking the glass. I was just really impressed with the way he played last night. Wish he would have knocked down a few more shots, but when you're doing everything else, you got to feel good about it. And that kind of stuff tends to be contagious, and maybe it wasn't as much as you'd like it to be last night, but yeah, I was really impressed too. Really was. All right, see, now I've had some roll off on this thing again. I'm going to try to get caught up here. Jake Belk says, when do we see Ford? I know Devo is great on defense, but his shot selection is absolutely killing us in crunch time. Any chance of Pinion getting more time to help space the floor on offense? I knew Pinion was going to be the hot topic today. We look for the shooter when the team doesn't shoot well, right? I get it. I understand that. With Ford, can he make shots? I don't know. We just haven't seen him, right? And so for me, if we're talking about Devo compared to Ford, especially in a game like last night, I'm rolling with the dude that's got 3 years of SEC experience and is proven. Yeah, his shot selection at times was really getting under my skin last night too. He also made some big ones, and that he's got that in him. I'm not saying Ford doesn't. I just don't know. We just haven't seen it. I wish we would have, had the opportunity to get more looks at that in non-conference play. I thought the times he was out there, he was fine. Not necessarily that aggressive looking to score, but maybe that's not what they would need from him anyway. But I don't know. And I think some of it too is going to depend on foul trouble. Like, look, we know how Muss operates. If those guys are healthy and not in foul trouble, the starters are going to play heavy minutes. That's just the way he rolls. But what we saw against Asheville, for example, you're man down with Nick out. AB picks up 2 fouls. Walsh picks up 2 fouls early. You got to dig into that bench a little bit. So we got to see Ford and Pinion. And so can those guys stay ready when their number is called? I hope so. He's going to get in there, though. I'm sure he will. Dustin Hoofman says, like the Texas game was a wake-up call, I think this is a welcome to the SEC and the road opener wake-up call. Didn't see anything that made me worry. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Like I said, I have mixed emotions about the game because I'm frustrated because I really feel like it's one Arkansas let slip away. Like they should have won that game for sure. I'm more frustrated about that than I am Creighton, despite the officials. Because I think Creighton's really good. I'm not sold on LSU. I know it's a big statement to make after they just beat Arkansas, but I feel like they should have won that game and they let it slip away. But yeah, big picture, not a big worry. You just can't let it become a thing that snowballs, right? No domino effect. Michelle Wilkerson, my wife, says not much hair to rip out. Listen, you're right. Taking shots. James Ladon Childress says, the play was very physical last night, probably a little too physical at times. We will see more of this in conference play. The Hogs will not have an easy time in the upcoming schedule. We will get better from this. Agreed on all accounts. All accounts. Like I said, man, the SEC is just different. It is. It's a physical league. They let you play a little bit more. Nothing comes sweet in the paint. And even the guards, like, how many times have I said Trey Hannibal, man, he was just bullying people. And that's what you're going to see in this league for sure. And you're not going to get the benefit of the calls, especially on the road in this conference. And you're right. We talked about that schedule a little bit. Woo. Missouri, Auburn, Bama, next 3. I think you get Vanderbilt after that. We're going to learn about them. Dustin Hoofman says, grading players, I think Anthony Black needs an A++. He's had a lot on his plate without Smith being on the floor and has made his mark. He's just a freshman. Yeah, he's done a good job. He's done a great job. I did our midterm reviews. I always do the player grades. So I did the midterm reviews over Christmas break. I think I gave AB an A. A+ means there's nothing he can improve on, Cut down the turnovers a little bit, get a little more aggressive to score. Everybody's got room for improvement, right? But no, he's been great. Was off his game last night. Didn't play well last night. He was sick. Whatever. He'll be fine. Lottery pick. James Ladon Childers says, I can't stand LSU. Me either, man. That was a frustrating loss. You know what? What I will say, though, is I used to get really bothered by LSU when Will Wade was the coach. Guy drove me nuts. I like Matt McMahon, though. I do. I like that guy. And I like his team, too. The one thing about LSU the last couple years, just with some of the guys that they had, they were really good and really talented. They got under my skin. Darius Days, games he used to have against Arkansas, man. You guys remember like Javonte Smart, guys like that? They used to drive me nuts. I actually like the group that he has. But I never like losing to LSU. Nah. Kingsley, my guy. Very physical play last night. I thought we took too long to adjust to that. Yep. In some ways, specifically driving hard to the rim, which we never did. Yeah, it was just so weird that they kind of abandoned ship on that in the first half. I guess that zone had them out of sorts for a while there. But, coming out of the break in the second half, they were really They were more aggressive getting to the rim, but then also attacking the offensive glass, which we haven't seen from this Arkansas team all year, and it ticks me off. My wife talks about it all the time. Like, these guys are taller and more athletic and longer than everybody. Why aren't they getting offensive rebounds? Well, I don't know. I really don't. I think some of it is teams pack the paint on them. It's a little bit harder to do. They don't shoot a lot of threes. Typically, they did last night. So, not as many long rebounds. But, man, take advantage of that length and size. I thought they really started doing that. Got some tip-ins, some putbacks, extended some possessions. But then it kind of trickled off there a little bit down the stretch. They were settling for jumpers again. Out of character is what Muss said. I would agree. Weird game. James Childers says, I agree that Graham needs a longer leash. Muscle pull him in a second. Yeah, like I said, man, it almost feels like as soon, like one possession in, if he's got it or not. I don't know. There's just a very different look with Graham when he's on and when he's not. And, it doesn't have to be like remarkable like he was against Asheville to think, okay, he can provide something tonight. But, the way he walked out there on the floor, against LSU, I'm not trying to be hard on him, but he just right away I was like, it's not his night. But he just looked a little bit, I don't know, maybe shook or, I don't know, just not dialed in. But they've got to have him, so you got to keep turning to him. You have to right now because you need that offense. You need guys to be able to get a blow. So we'll see. It's frustrating because you see those outbursts and you're like, man, this is why this dude was all Pac-12. Like, he's legit. He can play. And he's a senior. That's what gets me about it. He's a senior, right? And so you have those stretches where you look just real like he's making freshman mistakes as a senior at times. So it's just a consistency thing. And guys, man, they hit their stride at different times. They settle in at different times. But I don't want a talent like Graham to fall into the Vance Jackson category of dudes who are, just really gifted and skilled players that can just never fully crack and carve a role inside the rotation. So hopefully he gets it going. He's going to have another opportunity Wednesday. Yeah, Zach Van, Council and Black with off nights, too much to overcome. Sure is right now, especially if you're not getting any production, off of the bench to counteract that. It's like we talked about with LSU. KJ Williams gets shut down. Adam Miller has an off night, but they have some of those role players step up and have really nice games. And Arkansas just didn't have that guy necessarily in this game. They'll learn from it. Zachary Beeler says we'll be fine. Expect a really tight game, especially without Nick. I would have expected a tight game with him. Let's see here. A couple more from James Childers. I love that Kentucky got last night. Yeah, me too. That's always a good thing to see. I think it's a good thing for Missouri to be rolling a little bit coming into this game. Won't be any overlooking those guys now after the last two wins that they had. It's going to be a spotlight game, too. It's a good opportunity from Arkansas. I need to go look at the net rankings. I don't know if it's going to be a quad one or not, but, man, it's going to be a high-profile game for sure. Kevin Alexander says, coaches often tell shooters to keep shooting. Not sure what they tell guys who are not pure shooters. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Beeler says, I think we're going to beat Mizzou pretty easy, to be honest. We always play well against them in Bud. I know 2 years ago I saw Missouri come in and beat the hell out of Arkansas in Bud, and Muss got ejected, and it was the first loss of the season. But they beat up on them last year. Just you can't even really think about those things, though, because it's a new coach. It's essentially a brand new team. They're playing well right now. Like I said, though, even last night and Illinois, I don't know how much it says about Missouri versus what it says about, the struggles that those other teams are going through right now. But what we know is that Missouri will capitalize on you if you are wounded. And is Arkansas in that spot right now? Maybe a little bit, but Yeah, I would be floored if Missouri came into Bud Walton Arena and rolled past them. I'd be floored. I'm not expecting that at all. Need to go 2-1 in the next 3. I know Muss is going to be ready to go against Nate Oates. You better believe it. He's always ready for that. He was salty about that game at Alabama last year. They lost by 1 point for like the whole year. I mean, after they made the NCAA tournament, beat Gonzaga, they're going to the Elite Eight. I feel like we were asking questions about other things at the press conference. He was like, we did lose that 1 point game at Alabama that we feel like we could have won. Like he wants to win those games for sure. It's an underrated rivalry brewing, I think. Josh Grubb says, I think it came down to Hannibal and our shots not falling. Agreed. Weren't able to guard him. We missed way too many close jumpers. Agreed. Got a good-looking Mizzou team next. What's your opinion on the Kentucky game with Mizzou? Yeah, I thought Missouri was the better team. But I also think, Kentucky's really going through it. I know I've said on this show a few times now, they're going to figure it out. They're too talented. You got Oscar Tshiebwe back. They'll be all right. And maybe they still will. There's plenty of time. But, boy, they have not looked good, and they're really struggling on the offensive end of the floor. Yeah, man, I don't know. Has the Calipari effect worn off? I guess we'll see. I hope they're still struggling when Arkansas plays them in a couple weeks. James says, do you think Muss should have put in more guys to bang against LSU since the game was so physical? Well, I thought Mackay was doing such a great job on Williams that you wanted to maintain that matchup. Maybe they could have done a little bit more with Fountain, because he was giving them fits, 6'10" guy in there. I just don't know who that would be. Kamani. I would still like to see Mikal get in there. I've said it before. He's just got that look. He's got the physicality and the rim protection. But, again, we're not invited to practice every day. I'm sure there's a reason that he's not getting that much time. But it does kind of go back to my point from previous episodes that I feel like they're going to need, one of these forwards, one of these big guys to step up and, kind of be a consistent force, because we saw the difference in physicality that SEC brings. Kingsley says, why does AB pick up his dribble so quickly and easily? I know his awareness is high, but is there something else to that? It's a freshman. That's a freshman thing. And I also think, as much of an advantage it is for him to be a 6'7" point guard, it can also serve as a disadvantage at time, because there's just more room from the ball to travel from his hand to the court. And so if a little guy's getting on him or he's getting swarmed a little bit, what he'll learn is to get low, right, and maintain his dribble and kind of crab walk his way through it and split those things. But right now, while everything's a little bit more upright and high, it's just a tendency to pick that thing up, especially as a freshman, when pressure is coming at you. That's what you do. You want to pick it up, make the right pass and kind of get rid of it. Caleb Price says, any chance they can play Walsh at the 3 and play 2 bigs? Yeah. I think they would have done that if Graham had gotten it going a little bit. I'm intrigued. I don't know if we've really seen much of it at all, but I'm intrigued by the thought of Mackay and Graham. I know it's weird because they're both kind of centers, but I think there's enough versatility to their games that it could work. I don't know. I think it'd be intriguing. A little high-low action there. I might be crazy. I wouldn't mind seeing it. And I think it would take some pressure off of the backcourt if you could play Walsh more at the 3, and then you got a really good player still out there on the wing, and Anthony Black can get a couple minutes. Slide Walsh up to the 3. You can give AB, the final minute before a media timeout, and he gets that break. Then you sub him back in for Devo, right? And then Devo gets a few minutes. And then you bring, whoever, that Council back in. He subs in for Graham, then you slide Walsh back down to the 4. You could do that. It's easy to say, but it's different once you get in the flow of the moment. I know when I would used to make substitution charts for the game. It's like, okay, this is exactly how we're going to go about our rotation, and we're going to make sure guys get X amount of minutes or whatever. But when you get into the heat of the moment in the game, it's like, ooh, I can't take him off the floor. Ooh, I don't like this matchup. So we would roll with it through like the first time out, and then I'd crumble up the sheet and throw it behind me. So I get it. All right. I think that's gonna wrap us up for the day. Good episode. Appreciate you guys participating as always. I love the Q&A. It's my favorite part. I want to know what you guys think. Answer the questions that you might have. But again, you know, frustrating loss. They're going to be fine. 17 more SEC games to go. I think it was a one-off. I think they're going to be ready to play on Wednesday. I think it's a 7:30 tip Wednesday against pretty good Missouri squad from Bud Walton Arena. So that would make our next episode probably Thursday of next week. Appreciate you guys. Like always, Hog Hoops Live would be nothing without you guys. I'm just a talking head up here. But listen, everybody be safe out there for New Year's. If you're traveling, be smart out there. If you're shooting fireworks around, be careful. Don't lose a finger. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you next time.